All right, we're looking at the differences between the Gen 1 and the Gen 2 Kakwa 55. So on the right is the first generation. I bought this when it was pretty much brand new the first time it was available. I added the paracord, and I added the paracord to both of them because that's how I hold my tent on the outside. But looking at the differences between the Gen 1 and the Gen 2. So first of all, the Durston logo is, how you can tell it's a Gen 1 is the Durston logo is above the mesh net. And on the Gen 2, the Durston logo is down here. But you notice also that there's a little bit of material here that's not on this one. And that allows this to actually be a bigger mesh. And you can kind of see that in comparison between the two. You can hold a lot more in this one than you can in this one. All right, so what else is different? All right, when you look at the front, you don't see any substantial differences. The shoulder straps look the same. All the strapping and the waist belts and pockets all look the same. The water bottle pockets, the extra zipper pocket on the side. So I think they're very similar, and I think they're a similar size. I don't think Dan changed the size on these. There is one thing that's kind of interesting about the inside. This is the Gen 2, and you can see that this material is supposed to be wrapped up around the top of the aluminum frame, and then I Velcro to it. And it works, but it often comes loose, as you see right now. It's just very tight, and it's actually kind of difficult to stretch it. And then when you stuff it, often it just kind of pushes, and eventually it releases and becomes open like this. And as I hike, I just fix it. Whereas the other one, the old one, you can actually see it's different because it has a M for medium on it. And it didn't seem as tight. There's quite a bit of overlap. It's almost impossible to get that kind of overlap with the second gen, for whatever reason. All right, ignore the mess around the room. We're moving, so I'm trying to do a number of different things at the same time. We just got in the new Kakwa 55 in sage green that was just released by Durston. So we've already shown the differences between my Kakwa 55 Gen 1 and my Kakwa 55 Gen 2. And so now we have basically what's a Kakwa 55 Gen 3. So what are the differences between them? So I'm lining up the bottoms to be even. And what you can see is we've already gained probably looks like 3 inches of height right there. Which I can tell you when I'm doing a 5-day food carry, that's going to come in really handy. So these little kind of quick release things are now a little bit different. They've got a little tab on them, which I find easier to use. Of course, this one I've added the paracord. I haven't added the paracord yet to the new one. As you can see, the buckle type on the Gen 2 is different than the buckle type on the Gen 3. That's one of the newer buckles that you can it goes kind of snaps into the middle. The mesh pocket, I don't know if it's actually changed size or not. It looks similar. So if I take the new Gen 3 and overlay the Gen 2, make them even. Yeah, you can see that the Gen 3 is just a bit, maybe 3/4 of an inch wider. So you get a little taller and a little wider. My understanding is it's also wider at the bottom, though it's kind of hard to show that here. But maybe if we put a bear can in, it'll become more obvious. Now you can see that the new one has it looks like the frame fits so much better. It's got the same large overlap and the medium tag on it. All right, so here's the grub can, the carbon fiber grub can, bear canister. and I've stuck it into the Gen 2 55, and it wedges down where it's pretty much here. And this is as far down as it'll go because it's tapered at the bottom. So we'll try that in the Gen 3 and see how different it is. Alright, we now have the Gen 3 with the same grub can in it. And it's gone down. It's probably just a few inches deeper than it was in the Gen 2. But it will not go to the bottom also, not without possibly ripping the fabric. It's pretty tight in there right now. Alright, according to Dan Durston, the other modification that was done to the Gen 3 was changes to basically the hip belt. And one's real obvious. As you can see here, there's a padded foamy section that is missing here. This is just the fabric. And here, the padded foam section continues throughout the back. So where your low back is, you'll have more support. And I think that'll probably feel better. Yeah. Dan also mentioned that he had done some reinforcements, more stitching, to strengthen up what ended up being under high use, a more fragile area. And one of the things you can see is the difference here in these things that are not, they don't exist on this. And you can also see a slight difference in the shape of the belt. You see how the difference in the thickness or the height of this padding versus this one. And interesting that this one has, it's like a sewn piece that's ribbing around here, and that does not exist on the new one. And you can also see the form factor of the ends on the new one is different than the old one. So interesting. I don't know if the pocket's bigger. It actually kind of looks like it is, doesn't it? So hard to tell. Look at the pocket, slightly more, got more volume. I think the strap attachments are the same in terms of the buckles. But yeah, definitely some differences in the hip belt area that we see. So I'll look forward to actually trying that out. And definitely feel more padding at the bottom of this one than I do on this one. And there's definitely more foam. It's interesting. I'm going to check that out. Well, I'm looking at the, I was actually looking at the foam pad. They look similar, so I don't know why the other one feels, maybe that's just my long-term use of the Gen 2 versus the brand new Gen 3. The foam pads feel the same, but you can still see this overlap of the frame. This material is, I don't think it's as deep. Again, it's difficult as this material. Look at the distance there compared to the distance here. You can put them side by side. And so this has got a lot more overlap, and it's a lot easier to deal with. I don't expect this will come loose. This has always been one that constantly starts pulling apart under tension. All right, so let me sum up. I've had now 3 generations of Kakwas, and I've liked them all. I really have. The only reason I went to the Gen 2 from the Gen 1 was because of a larger mesh pocket, and I was struggling to fit all my stuff into the Gen 1 mesh pocket, and it just made it easier to have the Gen 2. So, but I kept the Gen 1 and the Gen 2, and mainly used the Gen 2, which I used for the remainder of my Appalachian Trail thru hike, and been very happy with it for, over 2,000 miles of use. So then why go to the Gen 3? Well, I saw some new features on the Gen 3 that were tempting. I'm like, oh, that looks kind of cool. I like the new padded hip belt area and slightly more volume. I think almost adding 5 liters. When I used the Gen 2, it was tight, especially when I was doing a full 5-day food care. I could barely roll the top. So that'll be helpful. But then I saw that it came in sage green as an option, and like, okay, I'm sold. I just like the idea of getting one that's sage green instead of the gray that I've been carrying for years now. So yeah, like them all. I'm impressed with the new features, and they'll probably come out with a Gen 4 at some point, and I'll probably upgrade to that. So yep, that's kind of where we're at, and this was just basically kind of like a quick look. I'm aware it's very crappy camera work. I just am using my phone and I'm holding it way too close and it's just bad. So I apologize. But if you've made it this far, I hope you've maybe answered some questions about the differences between the Gen 1, the Gen 2, and the Gen 3. Obviously, by the way, I didn't mention it, but the Gen 1 was a different material, so we've changed material types also. I guess the latest one is Ultra Grid something. I don't know. I'm not a material nerd. I just like having the gear. So that's where we're at. Talk to you guys later.